Well, welcome everyone. This is Debbie Mayberry with National Kitchen and Bath Association. You're here for our second webinar of the month on smart home and tech. And today's session is called, What is that keypad on the wall? Benefits of lighting control. Jeff Thomas is our presenter, and he is the Vice President of Product Management at Control4. And we have someone else in the audience with us today, Danielle Carr, and she is the Director of Marketing Special Programs at Control4 as well. She's going to be fielding some questions as we go throughout the presentation. And I definitely wanted to also thank Control4 for all of their generous sponsorship for our webinars this month. And Jeff, if you're ready, we're ready to get started. You're more than welcome to turn on your camera. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Excited to be here with you. And I tried to come up with a creative name for our presentation. What's the keypad on the wall? Not every time you look at a wall, a switch on a wall, you see a keypad. Sometimes you just see typical switches. So I want to spend some time talking about some things that are hopefully very helpful to you as you go through the design process and try to deliver some great things to your customers. So I'm Jeff Thomas. I've been in the smart home industry for I think just short of 20 years and spent time at a couple of different companies, and am now working in product management on lighting here at Control4. What I want to accomplish today is help everyone that's here with us to understand what a lighting control system can do. What are the benefits of it, and actually why it's needed with some of the changes we've seen in lighting. And the second objective really is to go through some of these elements that come into play when you do a lighting system, how they all work together, help understand what all the bits and pieces are, what the key selling points are, what the advantages are to some of these things that are changing in the market in lighting and lighting control. And then third, to talk about a broader view of what the smart home system can do in addition to lighting. We've been living with light forever. Humans need light. We started out back when with the sun and the moon, and we're more familiar now with light, with incandescent, fluorescent. We lived with that for a long time, but now, over the last several years, we're in the midst of this new, a lot of new changes in lighting. There's a lot of new science, a lot of new study on how lighting impacts us in our daily lives. And there's a lot of new technology that's come about in the last several years that has enabled a lot more capabilities in terms of lighting. And it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be involved with this. If you imagine years ago, you would just flip on a switch or two in your house and that was it. And most of the time we were just concerned about providing light so we could do things where it wasn't dark. Now we can do a lot more. I reflect on an experience I had at a trade show. It was back when we did trade shows in 2019 at the CEDIA trade show. I walked through a demonstration in the Lutron booth, and as I've attended trade shows over the years, I walk through I like to go sneak away sometimes and go into the home theater or the audio room, the listening room demonstrations, and I walk out of those rooms and I think, oh, wow, those are so nice. And it creates this emotional reaction, and inevitably I walk out and I think, oh, I wish I had enough money to buy that system because it was so cool. It sounded so great. It looked so great. And I walked out with this emotional reaction and desire to have that because it was so great. And I hadn't experienced that with lighting necessarily until I went through the Lutron Ketra demo at CEDIA 2019, like I was saying. And as I went through that, and they had this apartment built on the trade show floor, and you would walk in and be walked through a couple of different rooms, living spaces, and some different scenarios with different lighting. I had the same type of reaction. I walked out of there and I thought, oh, I want that in my house. It was so beautiful. It just created such a nice atmosphere. There were so many great aspects of it. I loved it. And that's an example of what we can do today with lighting. It's super exciting to be involved with it and to look at all the possibilities that we have available to us. I'm sure you've experienced jobs where you go through and a lighting designer is not involved, and a lot of times without a design influence involved in a job, the builder and electrician may end up making some decisions relating to lighting, and sometimes they're oftentimes looking at meeting basic needs. I need this much light in this room. Okay, let's put 4 can lights, and it's going to take a switch right there, and I'm going to put another light over here and another switch over here. And one term I heard with this type of lighting was light the carpet. You're basically just looking to light the carpet, provide sufficient light in the room. It's a very basic approach to lighting. It leads to sometimes some bad shadows, some bright spots, decor in a room not really being lit such that you can really see, how nice the room can look or does look with all these nice fixtures and things in it. I can end up with cluttered walls where there really isn't a lot of thought to how many switches are on the wall. I might end up with a 3 or 4 or even 5 gang bank of light switches on the wall, and that tends to be cluttered. And so when we're trying to create a really nicely designed room with a great experience, we can do so much more. And that's where we look at the opportunity to provide very nicely lit, very well lit spaces, nicely illuminated, with accents and different layers of light. We minimize the number of light switches or keypads on the wall, make the wall look a lot nicer. This is what we can do today. And this is where we see a great opportunity to make the rooms and the houses that we work in really great, nice spaces. Let me take a look at an example, share this example with you. This is a kind of a before and after, or a bad and a good type of situation. Now, the one on the left isn't that bad, but it does highlight, I want to point out some of the things, the lighting aspects of it that can be improved. You'll see the can lights in the back of the room where they create those hot spots on the wall above the cabinets. There's a lot of shadows being created and cast down the cabinet fronts. And if you open those cabinets, you're probably not going to be able to get much light in them to see what's in them. If you look across the countertops and across the island, there really isn't a nice uniform light on those working surfaces. There would be some shadows there. Back over in the corner where the pantry is, it's shadowy there too, and it's kind of dark. Where now we compare what the changes have done on the right-hand side, and you can see just the opposite of these things. You can see how the countertop and the island are better lit, and there's enough light coming from enough different directions that you won't get strong shadows. So it creates a nice, well-lit environment for the working surfaces. The cabinets are uniformly lit. The pantry's nicely lit. There's even a nice toe kick light there. This particular project was done for somebody that was growing a little older, and so this toe kick provides for a nice living in place, not only an aesthetic, but a nice safety aspect also of this lighting to help with balance and being able to see where the edges of things are. Another final thing I want to point out is the uplight up against the ceiling, the LED lighting above those coves. And there's something interesting in some of the science that I've read and heard talked about how our eyes function. And our eyes are particularly, they're built so that we recognize bright light coming from above and also warmer light coming from the horizon. And what these stronger uplights do, they not only give you the ability to dim, brighter and dimmer to create different types of lighting scenes in the room, but they also lend to this more natural way that we expect to see light. And now the ceiling is a lot more uniformly lit, and you get very nice ambient light levels all throughout the space. So this is an example of some of the great things we can do when we bring some lighting design into a job, into a home. What does it take to do this type of work? What does it take to deliver these types of experiences? There are several presentations on the NKBA website that I've looked through, and some great presentations on lighting design, the fundamentals of light. What do you measure? Why is this important? Why is that important? What are the aspects of lighting and lighting design that really need to be paid attention to deliver good lighting that's beautiful and that also meets the needs of the homeowner. I encourage you to reflect back on those presentations if you've seen them, or go back and look at those, and those will help you become more educated about the types of things that really matter and what it means to have a well-lit space, and what does need to be paid attention to be able to deliver a really nicely lit room. They provide great content there. I'm going to spend more time talking about the technology of lighting that's available today and the changes that we've gone through and the hardware that is included to take advantages of some of the additional features and benefits that today's lighting brings. And then finally, we'll talk about how you go through this job, how you work with all the people that are involved to make sure that you can deliver the best experience. A lot has changed in lighting technology as we've looked over the past 10 years or so, as I alluded to earlier. LED lighting is very popular. It's here to stay. It saves us a lot of electricity. And what it's also done is given us the ability to have a lot more flexibility in what we can do with light. In this image, you see these nice fixtures with this LED lighting around the edges of it. We can do all kinds of really beautiful and cool lighting designs with LED strips, the light strips and fixtures. Really nice fixtures are being designed, and these provide some great advantages. However, LED lighting has provided some other challenges, and I'm sure that many or most of you are familiar with these things. We used to just turn on the incandescent lights. It was turn them on, turn them off. We didn't really deal much with color temperature, and you might have a dimmer involved. Now we have a lot of different performance capabilities. We have dimming, sometimes there's dimming compatibility problems between the actual dimmer and the fixture. You got to make sure that you don't have to deal with that and worry about that. Color representation is another thing that needs to be paid attention to. Sometimes in some of these other compatibility issues, you can see some flicker as you're dimming. So that making sure that all of the components in the lighting system, from the fixtures all the way down to the devices that are controlling the lights and the dimmers, are all compatible and produce exactly the experience that you want to deliver. Another thing that's available to us now that really hasn't been available in the past is color. We can do anything with color now, with RGB and with tunable white. We can provide accent colors, and tunable white provides some great experiences. From fixed, we can look at fixed color. We're dealing with fixed color fixtures sometimes, dimming with a warm dim type of capability. And with all this comes the need to have control. Like I said, what we were used to is you turn things on and off and maybe dim them, and that was it. We really were just controlling this one variable, this brightness variable. Well, now we're controlling not only the brightness, but we're controlling the color. And so there's more that needs to be involved there in terms of being able to control more variables with those fixtures. I want to talk a little bit more about fixtures. As you go through this process, you probably have already noticed fixtures are becoming a little bit more complicated, and that is because of all the different variables. So let me talk through some of those things to help you understand all those different types of functionality that comes in today's fixtures. Before LEDs and before these low voltage type fixtures came about, we had incandescent or fluorescence, and circuits were designed such that a circuit would provide this much power, and I would go in a room and I would say, okay, I've got to put 8 can lights here and 6 can lights here, and that's all I can put on the circuit, or maybe not even that much, depending on how much, the bulbs would take 65 or 75 watts. And so one of those circuits was really pulling a lot of power. And so what we would end up with, maybe in a kitchen and great room area, is we might end up with 2 lights in the kitchen and 3 lights in the great room area. And that was it for that whole great room, kitchen, great room area. Now we can look at a kitchen, and it's easy to imagine that we might have, rather than 2, we might have 5 or 6 different light sources that are individually controlled, and they take less power. And so this additional capability means we've got more parts and more pieces that we need to make sure that come together well and work well together. but that capability gives us a lot more, many more options to do layered lighting and deliver a much better experience. And all of these elements, all these different pieces all need control. And so I'll talk more about the specifics of the types of control here in just a minute. First, I want to talk about the capabilities as you look at fixtures and linear lighting that you need to be aware of as you choose the type of fixture. There are fixed color temperatures such as 2700, 3000. You walk into Home Depot to buy a light bulb, and now we're all becoming educated about what a color temperature is, where we didn't really even think much about it before. So I have to go in and I go in to buy a bulb, and I think, well, what do I want? And I look at the little demo. Well, I want, do I want this color of light or this color of white or this color of white? And there are names on some of those now. Some manufacturers are putting names on them. But with the tunable white lights that are now available in a warm dim function and a variable tunable white function, we can deliver so much more. It reminds me of a story of talking to a dealer at a trade show earlier last year in Europe. He was a dealer from the UK. And we were talking about various things, and he happened to bring up a job that he was working on. And he said, my customer just called me yesterday and said they originally decided on 2700K for their house, but they've been thinking about it more, and they decided they wanted to switch to 3700K. And this dealer thought, oh, this is going to be tough, because now I've got to call all the fixture manufacturers that I've got involved in this project, and I've got to switch all my fixtures from 2700K to 3000K. And as I was having this conversation, I was thinking in my head, wow, why do they even have to worry about this problem? This customer should be able to, maybe it was their choice for cost reasons, and that is an option, but we don't have to worry about those. If my customer wants to have variable color temperatures in the room, for example, they might want the lights in the kitchen to come on a brighter white in the morning to get everybody going. We're all getting ready for work and school and whatever. And it's a little more energizing. And then in the evening, in that same room, I can lower the color temperature and have it be more warmer and a more comfortable environment, rather than having, being stuck with one light, one color temperature in one room and a warmer color temperature in another room. We can have that all in the same room with a variable color temperature solution. There are two ways to do this. One is through warm dim, and one is through a tunable white fixture. And let me explain the difference there, if you're not familiar with this. Warm dim bulbs and fixtures are designed to emulate an incandescent bulb. And what I mean by that is, as you turn them on to full brightness, they are a cooler white, like midday sun. They produce a cooler white light, a more, some people say it's more energizing, it's more middle of the day, it's better suited for tasks, for studying and cooking and whatever. As you dim the brightness of that bulb or fixture, then the color temperature transitions to a warmer color, just like an incandescent bulb does, and just like the sun does. And so that's the difference there. A warm dim bulb, you're still only controlling one variable. You're still only controlling brightness. I can still put a warm dim bulb or fixture on one dimmer and produce a varying color temperature experience. It is tied to brightness, but it is similar to an incandescent bulb. And those are great options. That's if that's suitable for a customer, those are great options. The tunable white option gives you more flexibility there, though, because now I can control both the brightness and the color temperature at separate times. And that gives me a bit more flexibility in the types of scenes and the type of color temperature environments that I can produce. It does mean that you need additional control, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. So when you pick a bulb or a fixture, you've got the fixed color temperature, you've got warm dim, or you've got tunable white, or you've got RGB. RGB comes in a couple of flavors. You might see RGBW or RGBTW or RGBWW. What those W's and the variations of W's on the end of that mean is that not only do the lights have a red, a green, and a blue LED, but they also have a white LED. And the reason is is because you can get white by mixing red, green, and blue, but it often produces a less desirable white color temperature. And by adding another white LED, then with that same light source, typically an LED strip lighting or linear lighting, then you can produce a much better white light source. So that's a really nice advantage if the customer wants to use those same lights for color for some reason, whether it's for accenting or special occasion or whatever. So those are the options of fixtures you can choose. There are a couple other parameters that are worth noting and paying attention to, and that is around the color rendering and brightness. You're going to want to make sure that you have sufficient brightness, and a lighting designer and the information in those lighting design presentations emphasizes this. If I specify a fixture for a can light, for example, for a 9-foot ceiling, then putting that same can light on a 10-foot ceiling is not going to produce the same results. And you can gauge what the results are based on some of those brightness parameters that are included in fixture spec sheets. Color rendering index is another one that you'll want to pay attention to, CRI. You may not be specifically specifying the lights, but it is a parameter that matters in terms of how the color is produced. This reminds me of an experience I had with linear lighting. The first time I bought some linear lighting, I bought some on Amazon. I just wanted to play with it, so I was cheap, and I put it up in this cove around the ceiling in my theater room. And as I did it, I tried to adjust it and get it to the right white, a comfortable white. The flashing colors and everything my kids thought were cool, but the white, I could not dial in a white that actually was desirable at all. And I finally abandoned my effort. This is what happens with lower cost or cheaper lighting products that produce that claim to produce white. You're going to want to, you kind of get what you pay for here with these types of things. And to produce a very nice color, a natural color, the manufacturers that really pay attention to that and produce products in the higher color rendering index, which are usually 90 and above, will produce a more natural, even more natural red, greens, and blues and mixtures of colors, and also more natural whites and whites that can get warmer. So those are factors that really matter when you're choosing fixtures. I've talked about controlling these new types of fixtures in linear lighting. I want to go into that a little bit more. Like I've said a few times, we used to just turn the light on and off or dim it or ramp it up and down with the dimmer. Now we have more variables. For example, if I purchase an RGBW linear lighting strip, light strip for kitchen cabinets, for example, then I'm sending it not only brightness like a simple light switch used to, but I'm sending it RGBW and brightness. So I've got to send it, in order to control that, I'm sending it 5 different commands or 5 different parameters. And that means that I need a control system and a mechanism to deliver those 5 separate commands to the light so that it knows exactly what to do. And that can be done in a couple of different ways. So I've talked about phase dimming, or I've talked about warm dim, where I can control that with a normal dimmer. And what I mean by that is a dimmer that uses phase dimming. This is a common type of light dimming that's been used. It's very common today. It's what we dim standard LEDs with. It's what we dim incandescents with. There's 2 types, forward phase and adaptive phase. And so if I'm not involved in, if my job is either a fixed color temperature light or even a warm dim light, you're going to want to make sure that there's some compatibility there. But oftentimes you can put a phase dimmer, regular dimmer on those lights, and those can perform well. Like I said, you're going to want to look at compatibility and the range of dimming you can get out of that, but that is possible. 0 to 10 is another technology that's been used for years and years for dimming. And it is it does it in a different way as phase dimming, but it's similar in the sense that it regulates a level of power or level of electricity that's sent to that fixture for that control. DMX, Dolly, High Loom, and there's some other protocols. These are the protocols that enable a control system to send the light or light fixture these multiple commands. Send the red value is this, the blue this, the green this, the intensity this, the white this. And those protocols enable those types of control. So you may find fixtures that say, this fixture is DMX controllable, this fixture is Dolly controllable. Those are the types of things that will tell you how these fixtures or bulbs are controlled and the type of control system that you need to put in. If you pick a DMX controlled fixture, then you're going to want a DMX control system and everything that integrates with DMX so that you can make sure that the keypad button press does exactly it. From the customer's perspective, they press the button and the lights turn on to the exact settings that they want. Works out really, really well. One last comment about fixtures and linear lighting. I've talked about the notion of you get what you pay for. You might find yourselves in situations where if you're not having the conversations and the electricians and builders are sometimes making decisions to get things done, they may see specification that says, I need 4-inch can lights in this room, and you have specific details on what those can lights need to do. And that's because of the ceiling height, that's because of the spacing, that's because of the color temperature. And you and your lighting designer have crafted this whole design specifically around how those lights produce light. And the electrician might see that and say, well, you know what, that's $150 4-inch can light. I usually buy them for $20 from my wholesaler, my electrical wholesaler. I'm just gonna put in mine. And that can happen, and you get to the job and you realize, wait, well, what's going on? These aren't the lights we spec'd, and it's really tough to recover from something at that point. Don't let substitutions come into play there. The lights are carefully specified for the lighting design. It's something to pay attention to as you go through this. You get what you pay for. Make sure that everything is carefully specified and designed so that you can produce that awesome, just incredible lighting experience that you and your lighting designer, if you've involved a lighting designer, have envisioned for your customers. Let's talk more specifically about the lighting control system. I'm going to talk through all the bits and pieces of the lighting control system and how it works to help give you a better understanding of what a lighting control system is and what it can do. The first part I want to talk about is interfaces. We call them interfaces. It's a little bit of a geeky term, but interfaces, these are all the ways that a homeowner can interact with their lighting system or their smart home system. Lighting it's very common to have buttons on the wall, and those are the keypad interfaces. They can be dimmers or switches. They can be multi-button keypad interfaces that have a bunch of different lighting scenes and so forth on them. You could also have a touchscreen on the wall, and the touchscreen gives you a more dynamic interface that can show you other elements of your smart home. It also can show you more lighting control. It can show you more lighting scenes, gives you a little bit more flexibility there. Mobile apps have a similar type of interface as the touchscreen that might be on the wall, and give the customer the ability to control all aspects of their lighting in their smart home. And they can do that from within their home, and while they're sitting on the couch, they can turn the fireplace on or slightly dim the lights or whatever, or they can do any of that while they're away from home. Doesn't make sense to turn the fireplace on, but you might be on vacation, and when you're on vacation, you might think, did I turn the lights on? Or, oh, I want the light in the front room, in the front room window to be on to make it look like somebody's home or something like that. Or did the basement lights get left on when everyone left this morning? They can do that. You can do that remotely from your mobile phone. And another interface for lighting controls voice. So there are several common and very nice functioning voice interfaces: Alexa, Google, Siri. And through these voice interfaces, it can be really common or really convenient for one of your customers to say, hey, Alexa, turn on the lights, turn on the lamp, or whatever. And this is a very common and can be a very convenient interface for control. I sometimes reflect on the analogy of what cars have done. I remember as a kid when you would turn the heating and air conditioning, sometimes you could hear the vent flip inside because you were moving this mechanical switch. And now in cars, a lot of those things, even transmission, when I'm shifting gears with my transmission, I still have the knob, on the console next to me, but a lot of that is now transitioned to electronic. And that's what we're seeing now with the switches on the wall. We are putting a very simple interface that isn't mechanically controlling electricity anymore. It's actually sending a command to the control system, which then does a lot more in a lot nicer way and produces a nicer experience. The pieces that are included in a control system are these keypads on the wall and the dimmers and switches on the wall. And they also include the control components like the DMX and dolly and centralized lighting. And I want to talk about each one of these in a little bit more detail so you can understand exactly what they mean. Let me talk about them from the perspective of a new install versus a remodel, a new job versus a remodel job. If you're doing a remodel job, all the wiring is already in the wall, and it's likely that you're not going to be ripping out a whole bunch of electrical and rewiring things. So you can still have this level of lighting control in that type of a job without having to redo all of the Romex in the wall. And that's done through wirelessly controlled dimmers, switches, and keypads. You can pull out the old switches in the wall and you put these wirelessly controlled dimmers and switches and keypads in the wall. And now the control system communicates with those wirelessly and tells them what to do. In a simple dimming case, I think that's easy to understand. The control system might say go to 50% and it ramps to 50%. Now a keypad provides you a lot more flexibility. These keypads, some keypads can not only control the load directly, but they also provide a lot of different options for the customer. And this is where one of the great advantages for a lighting control system is, because now on the wall, I can have multiple lighting scenes. And with the push of a button, I can create a really nicely designed lighting scene with multiple lights in the room. It's a great way to give a lot more, deliver a lot more in a very simplified interface. Now, that takes me to the new job topic. And the reason is in a remodel job, the wiring is already in the wall. In a new job, you can do the wiring however you want. And that's where the appeal of a centralized lighting control system comes into play. And the reason is because I don't need one dimmer or switch or keypad to control every light in the room in a centralized lighting control system, because I can just have the buttons in one keypad. For example, I might have the kitchen cans, I might have the countertop lights, I might have the overhead LED strip that lights up the ceiling, I might have the can lights over the kitchen sink. And I might have all four of those, but rather than having four light switches, I can do it with one keypad. And the way this works is the lights are all wired into a centralized lighting panel in another location in the house. And then the keypads are actually wired into that same panel with a control wire. And now I can program the keypad to do exactly what I want with multiple lights. And that when I press the button on that keypad, it sends the command to the control system. The control system then says, oh, I need to turn on light 1 to this, light 2 to this, light 3 to this, and light 4 to this level. And that can all be orchestrated through the centralized lighting system and the control system. So the advantage, like I want to emphasize, the advantage of centralized lighting is that now it gives me a further advantage of reducing the number of devices that are on the wall, which is often very desirable, because having, a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 gang bank of switches on the wall is not very attractive in a really nice home, especially. The other element of the control system is the actual lighting control element, like DMX or dolly that I've talked about. And those components can fit in the centralized lighting panel as well, or they can be located elsewhere in another lighting panel. You may have maybe you're just doing a kitchen remodel job. You may find a location in a nearby closet or maybe in the pantry where you put a couple of lighting control modules that give you the ability to enable DMX or dolly control, so that now through the control system, you program everything on the keypad, and those devices then can deliver all of those different variables like I talked about, the red, green, blue, white, and the intensity. And so those are also control elements and control components of a lighting control system when you're involving color and tunable light. And then finally, the magic of all of this comes into play with the software and the algorithms and the lighting scene configuration. And all of this is built into all of this hardware so that an installer can come in and can build all the lighting scenes as desired. The customer can even configure lighting scenes on their mobile app, for example. This is where all of this magic happens. All this comes together. You can think of this as the brain of the system. It's the functionality that enables the keypad to work. It enables the customer to access their system from a remote location. And that's where everything comes together in the lighting control system. Let me talk about some of the experiences the lighting control system provides. Dimming is a simple one, but if you've ever gone through the experience of just living with switches and then adding dimmers, especially dimmers, some of the modern dimmers where you go up and you just press the button to turn the light on, and rather than popping on like a regular old light switch, all of a sudden you have this, 1 or 2 second ramp on, which is a nice soft feeling, and it just adds a little bit of luxury, a little bit more comfort to how the lights work. A very nice advantage to having a lighting control system even with simple dimming. Preset light levels give you a lot of flexibility in controlling all the different parameters around lighting and doing that intelligently and easily for your customers. And lighting scenes also help you create these multi-layer, multi-light source experiences in the room and environments in the room that just create these elegant environments that create the emotion like I described in that going through the Ketra demo at that trade show. These are the types of things that make the reaction to entering a room to, wow, this is nice, to, wow, this is really beautiful. This is really, where the magic can come in, and you can create really, really beautiful spaces with light like that. Let me talk about some more examples about what the lighting control system can provide in terms of conveniences and streamlining the customers' lives and really helping them live, eat more easily. One of the examples I think of with a timer or with outdoor lights is happened this summer. I was mowing my lawn and my neighbors pulled in and it was dusk, and they walked inside their house from their garage, and right as they walked in, I happened to glance over and notice my neighbor had reached over and hit his light switch to turn his outdoor lights on. And as I was mowing, I thought, I've had a lighting control system in my house for quite a few years, and I thought, I don't recall the last time when I thought about turning my outdoor lights on. It never crosses my mind. It provides a really nice, a nice way to light up the outside of the house, but it's also a nice security benefit. This is a simple thing, but with a lighting control system, your customers can have these types of advantages. And then I don't ever have to worry about leaving the outdoor lights on all night long, or I don't have to worry about them being off when I'm not at home, and not, and having that extra security by having the outside of my house lit up. Another example of a simple timer is a bathroom fan timer. Have you ever found yourself walking around the house, somebody left the bathroom fan on, and you go and turn it off? These are simple things again, but a simple timer on a bathroom fan is a really nice advantage. And it just creates another little piece of value for your customers. Changing light levels at night is another really nice advantage. I like to point out these simple experiences because sometimes we overlook them and look at the more, the grandiose types of things they can do. But a lighting control system can enable your customer to wake up in the morning and they hit the lights in the bathroom and they turn on bright and it's nice and they're getting ready for work and it all works great. But in the middle of the night, they hit that exact same button, and through the lighting control system, because the lighting control system knows that it's dark and it's night, and the same lights, or maybe even other lights in that same room, turn on to a much dimmer level. So you don't have that shocking bright light flash in your eyes in the middle of the night. Again, it's a simple thing, but these things can really provide a lot of value to homeowners as they live their daily lives. They're great. Scenes, like I said on the last slide, are a way to use multiple light sources to create environments in a very simple way for exactly what the homeowner wants to do in that room. I can create a lighting scene in the kitchen with multiple layers of light for the time during meal prep or study time or whatever, when I want brighter lights, or when I'm working on the countertops or on the island and I want bright lights around. And then I can use the same lights, and I can use another button on that same keypad in that same room to produce a nice soft lighting environment for different activities. And these things are very common, and your lighting designer can help craft these. And I know that you've probably had experience crafting these lighting scenes as well. This is a great advantage of the lighting control system. And then the final example I want to talk about, I think, it's well illustrated when you think about the notion of a good night button. When you go to bed, you can have a good night button right as you enter your bedroom. You hit the good night button, and it does everything you want to have happen to make sure that everything's set to when you're going to bed. And that may be make sure the outdoor lights are on, make sure the front door is locked, make sure the garage doors are closed, make sure nobody left the lights on in the basement, make sure the lamp in the kitchen light is on because you want a little bit of light on. Whatever it is, any of these things can be integrated into just the push of one button with an integrated lighting system. It's a great way to provide this type of advantage. And when you integrate all these things together, your customers really can streamline some of the things in their life that maybe they don't even really think about because it's just part of their routine. But these are great ways to give these additional advantages. Let me talk again about the partners, your partners, as you work through this experience. Lighting designers can be great sources of information and great sources of helping you with the actual lighting design of your projects. They have great experiences. They're very focused. They're very educated, and they can produce really, really nicely designed rooms with great lighting. Leverage them when you need to. You might find yourself in a situation, though, where you've learned some about lighting design, or in other words, you've learned about some of the common pitfalls that you can run into. And for example, the light the carpet scenario. In a kitchen, it's really not desirable in most cases to have just the can lights evenly spaced around the kitchen because of the shadows it can cause. You can do so much better. So you may go through this, and you may learn enough to get yourself to a point where you can effectively deliver on some of these needs for some of the simpler configurations. And as you do this, it's really a nice way to go to build up that level of experience so that you can bring your customers that have some interest up to that level. But you'll also learn where you've reached the threshold of your experience and where you can call on the lighting designer, know that they're out there, and you can leverage their expertise in your designs to help them produce, even more maybe complicated or more intricate or more involved lighting design systems. So use them when the needs arise. The AV integrators are great partners in all of this, and it's really important to have to be involved with them quite a bit, because they will help you in the coordination of a lot of things. They're the ones that are involved in configuring the lighting control system. They're involved in the keypads on the wall and what those buttons are going to do. And they're involved in making sure that the fixtures and the lights that are used and the LED strips are used are compatible, and so that you get nice dimming performance, and you don't have flickering. So you're going to want to coordinate with them. They can be involved in those discussions that happen between the builder and the electrician to make sure everything goes smoothly. So having them involved, having them, having good conversations with them, understanding in those conversations where all the requirements are, and as you build a relationship with them and work with them and start working with them early, I think you'll find that this will go much more smoothly. And also, as you're selecting these AV integrators, know that some of them do have lighting designers on staff. That can be an advantage. And some either have partnered closely with electrical contractors, or they have licensed electricians on staff as well. And the reasons they're doing this is so that they can deliver a better experience, and so that they can better ensure that everything comes together well as desired, so you can produce the best experience for your customer. So these are advantages as you look for AV integrators. One source of finding AV integrators is on the CEDIA website. They have a link there for Find a CEDIA Integrator. You can click on that, put in your zip code, find a local integrator. We also have a dealer locator on our website, on the Control4 website. You can type in a zip code and you'll see a list of integrators there. And we have them listed there. And you'll also see on there that some have certified showrooms. And what that means is they have a very wide variety of all of our products installed in a showroom where you and your customer can go and see how everything works, how everything comes together, what the options are. Those can be very advantageous for helping your customer understand what types of things that they can have in their home. So choose someone, look for an AV integrator that can provide you with some examples of their work and some references. So when you partner with an AV integrator that's really connected, coordinated, understands LED compatibility, understands how everything comes together, has a good process for organizing even what the buttons on the keypads do, they will help you immensely as you go through this process and help you produce really nice rooms and really nice homes for your customers. Well, I thank you for joining me here, and I do like to keep in contact with people. I think it's really valuable for what I try to do in my job to help customers, help dealers, help people like you better deliver great experiences to your customers. Because when I have conversations with you, I understand the issues that you're encountering. I understand what you're looking for. These are very valuable to me. So if you have other questions or feedback after the presentation today, we're going to do some Q&A right now. But if you have other questions or feedback, feel free to email me. There's my email address right there. So now we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff. Debbie, I don't know if I'm stepping in here where you should be saying that, but I'm gonna just go. Jeff, we have got a bunch of great questions. And so
Right.
let's try to pepper through these as fast, like not as fast as we can, but being sensitive to the time. But the first question I think is really important is Stephanie asked, and she said, what is an AV integrator? So can you take a step back and kind of explain what they do and what they are?
Yes, I should have done that. Great question. Thank you. Our business has traditionally started with the AV integrator, the audio video integrator. And if you look back historically, these types of businesses were those that installed central vacuum. They started doing home theaters, and now they started to do more smart home systems. And smart home systems include multi-room audio. They provide a nice remote for your TV and all your audio video equipment, and they bring everything together. So these AV is for audio video integrator. It is a term that is commonly used in our industry that for these businesses that bring all of these people together, all these types of technology together.
Awesome. Next question, somebody asked, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to go through them in order of what makes sense to build on. There was one asking about can lighting and how do you convert can lighting into this kind of lighting, and what does it take and how much does it cost? You might have answered some of that as the presentation went along, but I think maybe addressing it again would be good.
Okay, let me talk specifically about that job. I had a conversation with the lighting designer that did that job, but not the electricians. What that would typically involve is you would have to do some sheetrock work on the ceiling to take the can lights out, but you do have Romex in the ceiling that delivers power to that area. So you would need to find a location. You would need to find a way to mount the LED lights around the top of the cabinets, and you'd need some extrusion to put the LED lighting. And that is one point about extrusions as you look at LED lighting. And just to take note that those aluminum extrusions that are used help dissipate heat and give the LED lighting longer life. So it is a good question. If you see that somebody installing without that, then that's a good question to ask. But you would put the LED lighting strip around, and then that connects into a power supply and into the control wiring, and you'll need to find a location for that. That may be, and it all depends on the configuration and how many devices are involved, but you will have to run some wire from there to a location where you can locate some of these other the control pieces that allow you to control the color and the intensity.
And Jeff, if the cabinets go to the ceiling, is that just kind of like, well, out of luck, or is there a way to kind of work around that?
If you're doing sheetrock work on the ceiling, one way to do it is you can embed the LED lighting into the sheetrock in an extrusion that's embedded in the sheetrock. And we're starting to see more and more of that, where you're walking the kitchen and rather than seeing the can lights in the sheetrock, we see, maybe you may see like a rectangular shape of light just embedded in the sheetrock. And that's a very nice way to do it as well. It looks very professional, very clean, and provides really nice light on the ceiling. So if you have cabinets that go to the ceiling, you could do, embed an LED strip in the ceiling right above those cabinets.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Okay. Another question is regarding lighting protocols like Dolly and 0 to 10 and others mentioned. Is there a way to mix these protocols if a product uses a different protocol? For instance, I have Dolly system, but the fixture I love is 0 to 10. Does that make sense? Can you mix those kinds of things together?
You can't. If you have a Dolly controlled fixture, you need a Dolly device to send commands to it. It's only going to work that way. 0 to 10 probably isn't the best example in terms of mixing something there. You really don't, in terms of what I've got between the button on the wall and the fixture that I'm controlling, you're really only using one control method to do that. And so you don't really mix those. Now, mixing them in the same job, that's possible. That's a different story. In other words, I might have a Dolly control fixture hanging in the middle of the dining room, but then I might have 0 to 10 that controls my warm dim tape lighting. And then I might have DMX that controls the under cabinet tape lighting. And that's all possible. The control systems integrate that all together. And the integrator will be able to put that all together. And from a customer perspective, actually from your perspective, you shouldn't need to worry about it if the AV integrator is comfortable and familiar with all those different protocols. They can be mixed in the same job.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff. Okay, a next question is around power. They said, what if a house loses power? Will a generator be enough to power things back up with this kind of lighting for a higher end client?
It can be. It would just have to be scoped. Clearly, less energy is used with LED lighting. LED light strips. Take that kitchen that we looked at, and you have the can lights in the ceiling, and I think there were 6 in the ceiling and 3 above the sink area. And those were probably, before LED bulbs, those were 65 watts a piece. So you can do the math and see how many watts of electricity you need there versus LED strips. So the need is going to be a lot lower. You can run lighting off of generators. There's some additional components that are needed, but it will depend on how much light you want to generate. And that will dictate the size of generator you need. In an emergency situation, you are going to get more light in the house. If you have your power go out, and it's starting to make me think of Texas. Sorry for the people in Texas. But you are going to be able to have more light in a room with that same generator than you used to be able to. So it's all about the amount needed, and that's going to dictate the size of a generator, but you can use a generator to power these things.
Awesome. We got a question from Javier that says, what AV systems are more efficient and can integrate with these types of lighting? I think it's time to introduce maybe some of the smart home operating systems.
Yeah, well, I think most of you probably know Control4 system is a smart home operating system, and we provide everything that's needed. Clearly, we provide all the pieces for a lighting control system, but we also provide audio control, video control, audio and video distribution throughout the house. We integrate with security systems, so and cameras and door locks and you name it. A lot of these control systems that are available for the high end of the market, and these are ones that come to mind are us, of course. Control4, Lutron is specific to lighting, but they are partnering with other companies to do more. Savant is another one that provides a lot of flexibility and capability. Elan is another one. So these are the control systems that you can look at to really provide you anything. I mean, as I think about the types of things that I've heard done with our system is very flexible. You really can do, I mean, whatever you can imagine. You know, hit this button, make this pump turn on for 5 minutes, make these lights flash, make this actual music play, whatever. I have a button at the top of my stairs going into the basement, and my wife got sick of yelling, "Come up to dinner," down in the basement when the kids are down there. So I actually put a button right there at the top of the stairs, and she pushes that, and it plays this audio. It's a little goofy, but it plays this audio throughout the basement. Come upstairs. And then she thought it was really funny. For those of you that are Office fans, if you press it again within 30 seconds, then Stanley from The Office says, "Did I stutter?" That produces a laugh. But you can do all kinds of different things with the control system. And so those are the popular ones that I mentioned that are very flexible, that will give you all the capabilities that you can imagine in providing whatever you need to for your customers.
This next question is a really interesting one. A lot of designers and people in general kind of view these types of systems only being able to run on internet. And so one of the questions was, what if they have a house in a poor internet area? Will these centralized systems work, or is there another smart lighting control? So if you can kind of talk about the ability to take this stuff into remote areas, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. Our system can be deployed without an internet connection. There are some limitations if you do that, and those are typically around remote configuration and remote access. They do require a network within the home, but you don't necessarily need the internet connection. They can run in a cabin that does not have internet access, for example. I don't know specifics about some of the other bigger control systems. I do know with the Lutron lighting control system, you can run those without an internet connection as well.
And then the next question is, how easy is it to retrofit an existing home?
It can be really quite easy. If let's take an example of a kitchen, for example. You go into the kitchen and you want to remodel this kitchen, you're doing cabinets and whatever, but you don't really want to dig into the electrical. You're going to provide some different light bulbs, maybe even with color control. You can do a job and provide tunable wide or RGB lights, like through Philips Hue, for example, without doing any cuts into the sheetrock or any rewiring. So you can actually retrofit a job easily. You are going to have some limitations on the light location. You can retrofit under cabinet lighting fairly easily. You do need to find a location for the power supply and a way to connect those into the control system. That can also provide a little bit more complication, but Philips Hue is another example of a way to do that wirelessly. They've designed their products around more of a DIY and a really simple retrofit solution. They do have their limitations, but it is possible. And then the next step further would be, if you are going to get into some sheetrock work, that's where it then opens up the possibility of cleaning up the ceiling, putting in some more strip lighting or linear lighting around the tops of cabinets, doing those types of things to provide a cleaner ceiling surface, a cleaner wall surface, and more uniform lighting around the edges.
So we have more questions. I know we're running up on the end of our time. I have one more that I think is a good one. You've touched on it, but I think just hitting it head on would be really great. They ask, can centralized lighting controls also operate other devices such as floor heating systems? And I think you've sort of said that with your funny basement one, that it also controls the audio. But can you kind of just dive into all the different types of things that like a keypad can control?
You bet. The centralized lighting modules that are available are usually a dimming module to dim devices, a switching module, and the switching module is a device that's based on relays that just switches power on and off. We have a 0 to 10 volt module as well, and then we have a keypad, the module that goes in to actually connect all the keypads that provides the control. Those modules can give you basic control of all of your lighting, or the needed control for all of your lighting, and also for things that are things that are controlled by relays. Now you might run into a situation where maybe you have a really high powered pump or something like that. It's not difficult at all to integrate a third party control component into a centralized lighting system. And then when you have that centralized lighting system, it's also connected to your smart home system, and you can coordinate really anything. I can press a button and I can turn on the fountain in the front of the house, as well as the outdoor lights. And some of those commands may be going directly through the centralized lighting components, the centralized lighting modules, and some of those commands may actually have other devices that are in that chain of command to control those specific electrical components of whatever it is, a pump or a fan or whatever. So you can integrate really just about anything you can imagine. Some of it goes directly through the lighting control system, the centralized control system, the lighting system, and some of it uses other components.
And then Jeff, on that, there were a couple people when you mentioned the good night scene, they got very excited about it. They're like, that's a great idea. Could you kind of just maybe list a couple other scenes where, to your point, with a single press of a keypad, a lot of different things happen, just to kind of get people's imaginations going?
Sure. Let me talk about a few that I use in my house. And these aren't as expansive scenes, but they're very, very helpful. I have a pathway scene. We live in a 2-story home, and right at the top of the stairs, I have a button that says pathway, and I press that button and it turns on several lights that lead me to the kitchen, typically where I'm going. And that's just a very nice way to just press one button and get, it's usually in the evening and I'm looking for just a dimly lit path into the kitchen. That's a simple scene. Another one that I have set up is for my garage doors. And on that same keypad, I have a button and it just says garage on it. And it has our keypads have a little status LED on them, and it's typical across, a lot of smart home devices. And I've got my status LED when it turns red. So if I walk by that keypad as I'm going to bed and I see that little LED on that button, and if it's red, then that means one of my garage doors is open. I have two different doors for my garage. That means one of them's open, and I can press that button and the intelligence in the system will determine which one is open and actually shut that door. Another lighting scene might be to wake up, and you could have things sequenced where you get up in the morning and you press a button and your bathroom lights turn on, and you may have your favorite talk radio station turn on. You may have the blinds come up also. You may have 10 minutes after that, you may have something else happen, like typically your son needs to get up 10 minutes after you get up and needs to go to school. So 10 minutes after you get up, the lights in your son's room come on, and maybe even the speakers in that room says a little announcement, time to get up, whatever. You can see flaws in that one, but you can orchestrate all these different kinds of events. They can be sequenced, they can happen all at the same time. They can be different lighting scenes. You can control different mechanical things. You can play audio, you can turn on the TV, you can mute audio. You can do all of this with the press of one button. And so there really is just incredible flexibility to do whatever your customer desires, whatever they can imagine.
That's so awesome. I know I love, one of my favorite scenes is going from cooking in the kitchen, like you mentioned earlier, where it's very bright, to entertaining, and it just like completely transforms the room, turns on some good music. You can set it to, turn on your favorite jazz station, and it's just an easy way to transform the space. So thanks for sharing those.
Yeah.
Debbie, I want to be conscious of the time. There's a couple more questions that we haven't gotten to yet. Do we need to just kind of have them email Jeff if they still want answers to them, and we need to wrap this up, or should I keep going?
Well, if you can stay, Danielle and Jeff, we can go for a few more minutes. I'm fine with that, and then I'll just close out the session when we're finished. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So then another question that Angela had was regarding like DMX, DALI, High Loom. Is one better than the other, or are they just different?
DMX and Dolly both originated in theater lighting. And from what I understand, Dolly is a little bit more broadly applicable to large theater lighting. I think they both have a lot of flexibility. But what I mean by that is I have heard advantages and disadvantages of each, and they apply to, how many lights are involved, how big the system is, and how many things you're trying to do. So there are advantages and disadvantages to each. I think we're seeing, at least in my experience, we're seeing DMX a lot more widely used here in North America. It's becoming very, very common, but I do hear of Dolly mentioned, I hear of Dolly mentioned once in a while, and mentioned a little bit more in Europe. We're seeing more Dolly fixtures become available there. But it's pretty common. It's pretty common for dealers, at least the dealers, the AV integrators that we work with that are our customers, to use DMX.
And I just want to make a plug that Jeff's made a couple times, that our local, we've called them dealers, integrators, smart home professionals. There's all kinds of terminology for this industry. But if you have questions and you want to maybe connect with somebody on a local level, like Jeff said, you can go to control4.com, search for a smart home professional near you. The certified showrooms, which I recommend, are always up top, and you can just walk, you can schedule an appointment if it's safe to do so. We've got to say that. And you can, walk into their showroom and see a lot of these things. Their showrooms are set up with live demonstrations. So they're experts as much as we are, so they can answer a lot of these questions, and sometimes in localized ways. Like Canada has different, AV requirements sometimes in Arizona, right? Or, you're maybe wanting heated driveways versus pool controls, that kind of stuff. So just note that, we are absolutely here for you, but also finding a local pro that you can kind of partner with and start maybe talking about options for working together is always, they're always welcome. They always welcome that, is what I wanted to say. So another question, and Jeff, you sort of answered this, but I'm going to maybe have you touch on it again, about retrofitting older homes. Can you maybe talk about the difference between wired and wireless options?
Sure. A wireless, you can think of the wireless devices as being those devices that give you the same type of control without having to redo any wiring. You can walk into the remodel job, you can pull the old light switches out of the wall, you can put these new dimmers, switches, keypads in this exact same location, and those will give you the control of the same devices they're wired to, but they'll also expand control so that you can do a lot more with them, and also give you remote control. What I mean by that is now I have a light switch that controls the can lights in the family room, for example. I replace that with a wireless, we call them a wireless dimmer or a smart dimmer. If I replace that with a dimmer, a smart dimmer, part of a smart home system, now when I press my all off button as I'm going to bed, then the control system can send a command to that device. So let me get into a little bit more detail so you can kind of see all the pieces. So our control system sits on the network of the home, but it also communicates wirelessly to all these devices in the home. And so when I press the all off button as I'm going to bed, the control system says, okay, what is all off? All off means turn off all of these lights. And so in this wireless control system where I've just replaced light switches, the control system will then say, okay, family room dimmer, go to off. And it will send out all the wireless commands. This happens so fast, it all happens at this exact same time. But it will send commands to all those individual devices that you put in the wall, where in place of the old light switches. So those are what we term a wireless dimmer, or a retrofit or a remodel job, a dimmer built for a remodel job. So again, you are putting these devices in the exact same places as the old devices, the devices you replaced, you pulled out of the wall, replaced, and then they communicate wirelessly to get all the control, to report status, and also get all the control commands from the control system. A wired keypad or a wired job is done typically with a centralized lighting system, where you can think of all the Romex, all of the wiring that the high voltage wiring that goes directly to all the light fixtures, that is all run into a panel and has control modules that control the electricity going to each one of those, rather than the switch in the wall. And now I have another small wire that goes around the house and runs through the boxes on the wall boxes, and those go into the keypads. And now when I press a keypad button, rather than wirelessly communicating to the control system, what happens is the command goes over that wire to the control system. Then the control system says, okay, I know what I need to do. I'm going to send an all off command to centralized module 1, fixture A, or centralized module A, fixture 1, or whatever. And then all those modules are all in one location, and they're actually controlling electricity to all the fixtures around the house. Hopefully that helped you understand the difference there.
Yeah, that was really great. I know when I talk with designers, a lot of them are like, I want to know how this works, but I want somebody else on my team who knows how this works as well. And so to that point, kind of just hitting on this again, if you're looking for somebody locally, they know how to be a part of your team, the same way you have, a cabinet person or a plumber or, a tile person, have a technology person on your team and on your, in your tool belt, I guess you could say, and they can explain a lot of these things and help you make those calls where you're trying to decide, well, should we go wired or wireless? And they can kind of help present the pros and the cons on a project level. So
yeah, and Daniel, that makes me want to summarize that point again with the last couple of questions. And that is, if you're going into a remodel job, you can provide them with the exact same control capabilities using wireless dimmers, switches, and keypads. The differences are that you may have more devices on the wall because that wall box was already there. And so you may end up with 4 devices rather than 2 devices, or 1 device, for example. That's a difference between the wired and wireless. And then the other difference is if you're going to, whether or not you're going to cut into the sheetrock and change fixtures out. And if you do, and you put more linear lighting in, then you do need to wire up those additional control pieces that allow you to control the LED lighting with color, temperature, or RGB.
Someone Melissa just asked, does wireless require batteries?
No, these devices are wired into the electrical system of the home. This can be a little deceiving because the term wireless is used, but think of it from the perspective of communication. So these are all powered by the electricity in the walls, the Romex in the walls, but they communicate back and forth wirelessly.
Awesome. That was a great clarification. Great question, Melissa. We had another question earlier on in the presentation. You talked about when you were talking about, how our eyes are built for perceiving light and, the horizon, and they were just kind of wondering if you could chat a little bit more about that, how
Sure.
we see light.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact science of it, but I read an article and have heard it mentioned by more than one person about how there's something about your eye where light comes in from the ceiling or from above the horizon. It hits a special portion of your eye that does something, and I don't know that we fully understand exactly what the impact is from a science perspective, but we know enough that there is a difference there. Like I said, some of the science that we're learning about is still fairly new, and there are still skeptics of it because it's still new. But there are, at a minimum, as you experience this, you'll feel the difference in comfort. But the actual science does not yet, most of the time, does not yet say these actually have direct health benefits that we can prove. So that we're still in the early science stage of this. But from this idea of light in the high in the sky versus lower on the horizon, you can see how when you're outside, you get the brighter white light in the sun, from the sun in the sky, and then in the evening you got the sunrise, the sunset, where lighting designers are looking at that saying, well, we're going to provide brighter light in the ceiling, and we're also going to provide a way to provide a warmer light at a horizon level. And that feels more natural. So I think you can understand what I'm describing here, where you can provide more of a natural feeling if you think about the bright being high and the warm being more on the horizon. And that is a design aspect that some designers are incorporating because of some of the science we're learning.
Yeah, and just on that, it's very interesting with the concept of scenes, like we've talked about. We've talked about a lot of what we can do with a keypad, which, I mean, obviously it's what this presentation was about, but a lot of this can be automated as well, to where Based on the time of day, the lights will automatically adjust. And Jeff's mentioned that before, but I just wanted to hit on that. And so it's one of those things where the homeowner isn't having to go around and adjust it to, evening horizon lighting versus overhead midday lighting. The house is actually following the sun. And that's what a smart home operating system and this level of control can give you.
Yeah, that's right. That is a pretty cool element of functionality that we're starting to see in the market more and more. And you hear terms like human-centric lighting or circadian schedule lighting or circadian lighting. And that is exactly what Danielle described. You can turn on the lights, and if you leave them on all day, the color temperature of those lights will adjust like the sun color temperature adjusts. So that same room, when you turn it on in the morning, it's going to quickly go to a brighter white, like midday sun. And then in the evening, without touching those lights, those lights will automatically switch to a warmer color. And by evening, they'll be at a warmer color. It's a pretty nice capability. If you have the chance to experience that or live with that, it's really enlightening to feel how nice it is to be able to change the color temperature in a room. It's a great advantage these systems provide.
Yeah, and on that, I know, what you just said, piggybacking off of that, I know a lot of designers, when I talk with them, they're like, oh, great, one more thing for my homeowner, for my client to have to deal with. And if you do technology right and you hire a professional, they can help make it to where the home does these things and the homeowner just has to enjoy them. It's not anything that they're having to manage. So thanks for adding to that, Jeff. So we have one more question, and I don't know if this is going to be something you can answer. I don't know the answer. So she says, what is happening when you see high quality LED lighting and the wiring is all new and you are using the exact high quality Lutron Maestro dimmer models recommended by the LED fixture manufacturer, and there's still flicker on the low dimming levels? Is that something we need to learn to live with? I've spent hours on the phone with the fixture manufacturer, Lutron, and an electrician trying to troubleshoot the flicker without a solution.
This is a problem with LEDs, and these things happen. And I not knowing the specifics, you're in contact with the right people to try to figure this out. But it is true, and that's why as you go into these jobs, it's really important to leverage compatibility information from manufacturers to say, okay, I'm going to specify this fixture or these bulbs for this room, and I'm going to use this Lutron dimmer or this Control 4 dimmer. Going into that job, you want to make sure you don't have these types of problems. And vendors are getting better and better, both fixture manufacturers and lighting control companies that make the lighting control manufacturers are getting better at providing this compatibility information. So it is something to pay attention to. It's depending on the hardware that you have involved, you shouldn't have to live with it. There should be a solution but it's hard to say what actually that will mean in that installation, depending on the components that are all used. But that is not something that we as a people have to get used to, because the technology is moving forward such that we should be able to have really, really nice dimmable LEDs that take you to very low levels. Right now, they are more expensive typically when you are looking for products that perform really, really well. Like I talked about the Lutron Ketra product, and one of their claims is really low dimming. I think 0.1% dimming is what they claim, and it is beautiful and it works really, really well. But it is one of the more expensive products. So as we go forward, as technology continues to advance, as compatibility continues to improve, these things will get better. We certainly do not have to learn to live with that. And leverage manufacturers' compatibility information to try to avoid those problems as you go into jobs.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff. This was a great presentation, great Q&A. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to hand it back to Debbie to wrap us up.
Well, thank you so very much, Jeff and Danielle, for fielding all these questions. You've made my life easier today. And Jeff, to you for presenting this great presentation. Thank you. And I just want to mention that we do have some past webinars on our website that actually talk about lighting and the circadian rhythms and things like that. So those are out there. And then we'll also be featuring lighting in May this month. So just so you have an idea of what we're working with. And again, want to thank Control4 for their generous sponsorship, and to all of you in the audience, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.